All right, we are connected for the Tuesday edition of the news. And as always, looking forward to connecting, share my 2 cents on a variety of subject matter. And wow, what a interesting last 72 plus hours. We got presidents being captured. We have Chinese assets being threatened, and we have metal grand rising, as I call it, because we are reaching all-time highs in everything, ultimately reflecting the fact that this thing here is at an all-time low. But anyway, we're gonna talk about that a lot more. So welcome. As always, let me know if you guys can hear me. Let me know if you guys can see me. And I have more tabs than I'm actually going to be able to get to because I've been compiling narratives as well as news and videos for the last 4 or 5 days. And yeah, outside of the noise, I'm like, let's just focus on the primary subject matter, which of course is wealth preservation for the person that's paying attention and listening to the sound of my voice now. Because outside of the geopolitical events, the political chaos, and everything else, is nothing that we can control other than what we can acquire when we can and how much we're going to spend to actually acquire it to protect ourselves. But anyway, okay. So as always, let me keep moving forward. I'm going to check in, make sure my audio is coming in good. Let me make sure everything is flowing smoothly. And one thing that caught my attention outside of many things, I'm going to go through the price chart of all metals. For the most part, anything that's metal and tangible from the periodic table is at an all-time high. And then, of course, we have the distortions and the disconnect of not being able to discover what an actual physical ounce of silver is worth now, because every single exchange, every single bullion dealer has a different price. And I mentioned that before, but it's becoming problematic because even there's a dealer that's sent out a letter to customers, basically giving them a heads up as to the uh, concerns of extended delays. So first it was 2 days delay, now it's a week, and in some cases, depending on what you're trying to buy, it's even a month. Imagine waiting a month to try to get something that you wanted because you're real meticulous in the types of weights you like to collect. So once again, these are things that's happening that worth paying attention to. So we're going to talk about that a lot more. But before I move forward, let me get myself together here, and then we're going to jump right into it. So for those who might not be paying attention, let me know what you're keeping your eyes on. There's lots of narratives, lots of stories to pay attention to. And so I'm focusing primarily on the actual price to get possession of the most important monetary medium in history. And before I move forward, let me just give you an update as to what's happening in the Metro Detroit area. So it is a sunny 35 degrees here in Metro Detroit, and it feels better than what that number actually it spells. And give you an idea, this is what it looks like right now, nice and chilly on the river there. But yeah, it's going to be a good day, man. But I want to make the most of this time. So let me just start off with sharing with you something that caught my attention. And so here we are. I watched the markets open or close rather from the LBMA, and seeing that we touched $80 plus. And then of course markets open here at 10. We went down from 80, 40 down to 79 something, but back at 80. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. $80 silver. Okay, once again, $80 is just the price we're being told, but actually go try to buy some. If you can find it, depending on where you go, you're gonna spend well more than 80. But then again, I'm like, okay, let's check and see what the dealers are talking about. So I even went to, so this is silverprice.org. This is $80 here. And then if you go to, let me go to my next one. So if you go to Kitco, let me refresh Kitco. Kitco's price was different. And so it's 80.01 here, and then it's 80.07 here. And I'm like, okay, that's different. And so we got different prices there. And of course, everything always fluctuates, but it's becoming even more obvious when you actually go to SD Bullion and you go to the top. And if you look at SD Bullion's spot price, it says 81.16. So once again, the actual price from the market makers is different than the actual businesses that exchange fiat for actual sound money, aka silver and gold. And so that $1 difference there, $1.15 difference there, is obviously reflected in the actual price that you're going to pay for that ounce if you use their services. And of course, if you go to every single bullion dealer, their price is different. So literally, an ounce of silver is not what you see on the screen. And as I said before, the ounce of silver is what you pay when you go to check out, which will definitely change more frequently than you expected. How when you go to check out and you got the timer and it says this is the current price at, and the time, if I'm not mistaken, used to be something like, they give you a minute. You know what I'm saying? Because the markets usually didn't move that much. But now I'd imagine if you're buying from your local dealers here online, they probably don't have the clock. It's just literally like, you click buy now, or we're gonna have to refresh the page and it's gonna be a different price type of stuff. So interesting times. But so let me just get into some more things here. I have all types of stories here, and of course, feel free to share your thoughts, ideas, suggestions. And so, a lot of narratives I notice are centered around the Venezuelan capturing of the president there. And one thing people may have talked about or may not have talked about is that why now? And there's many reasons why. I.e., the bankers need a fresh source of resources, aka metals, to accommodate the markets given this price suppression situation. And you have the Chinese and Venezuelan partnership that was really set to kick off this year, and it starts around and centered around oil. And then on top of that, you may not know about a $2 trillion jurisdiction that's also located in Venezuela that the Chinese has dibs on. And so literally China's not happy right now. And as a result of this capturing of Venezuelan president and the eventual uh, unraveling of all the agreements that Venezuela's president has signed with China, China will definitely have no reason now to even play around with gold and silver prices to try to make it seem like it's a smooth and gradual increase. They have literally removed the cap off of any type of gradual increases to where we're going to see, I believe, pretty soon coming out of the Asian benchmark setting mechanisms, $10 days in silver quick. And then, of course, LBMA and the Crimex have to get caught up quick. So, therefore, expect more price surges, therefore, more market distortions here when it comes to getting physical, and more pressure on bullion dealers to where there's going to be bullion dealers that are forced to go out of business. That's how bad it's about to get. But I'll share that more in a minute. Okay, so let me just try to give you things in a somewhat of a orderly fashion. I bookmark lots of things, man. I want to just start off with some things I bookmark, and then we'll get into some narratives. And so let's just start with how things ended in the Asian region. And of course, the best way to do that is to actually look at other commentators and they share their graphs and stuff like that in a timely manner. So here we got 15% of Shanghai silver has been vaporized, meaning that people are literally, as the price is set in Asia, they're taking the silver out of the vaults, which means China's going to have to continue to supply those vaults with silver if they want to keep the whole paper futures backed by physical narrative alive. And so, as a result of that, the race to get silver is going to intensify even more. And this is another reason why China is pissed that they're losing a potential asset that they had in Venezuela, because there's rumors out there that apparently before Maduro was captured, he sent gold and silver in planes out of the country towards that region. Once again, hearsay, he say, but a good chunk of Venezuela's gold was already exported to London and it's MIA there. But once again, I'll take that with a grain of salt. But give you an idea here, it says massive 88 metric tons of silver removed from Shanghai Futures Exchange vaults on Tuesday, which is today, which was yesterday there, today here. Says silver closes at 87.25. Look at that on the screen there. Let me make sure it's zoomed in there so you can see it. 87.25. $87.25 an ounce of physical in the equivalent of the renminbi. So they said gold closes at 44.64, and then you have the 2.8 million ounces withdrawn of silver, and then 1.4 withdrawn silver from the exchange. So futures exchange were redeemed for physical, and then from the actual vaults themselves was removed. So you look at all that silver moving, and once again, they don't bring silver out the ground nowhere near as fast as the demand. So you can expect a much higher price for the current available silver within the vaults. So that, my friends, will be very problematic for the Western Hemisphere, because even with the bankers having captured Venezuela, they're not going to be able to secure enough silver in time to actually meet demand of the market. So expect higher prices. But ultimately speaking, the current price of silver, because I think it is the centerpiece of this entire monetary experiment we're experiencing now, is actually irrelevant, because right now, as a for holders of physical silver, when you go to try to exchange or sell some silver back into fiat, the dealers, because of the issues they're having right now, there are definitely going to be some dealers out there that will buy it with no problem, but they're not going to give you anything that puts their business in danger of them losing. So they're going to always pay under spot. It's just a matter of how much. And so let me share some other things here with you. Let me get on the screen here. So um, here is just some more things here. It says delays. So this is delays. It says delays on 1 ounce silver rounds reached 7 weeks on some products at major U.S. bullion dealers. It says we're witnessing some historics on the silver market. It says today's 10% silver spike may cool demand slightly to start the week, but we may not be far from the point at which retail joins a silver stampede. So this is what I was talking about earlier from SD Bullion, where they gave a disclaimer here saying, so you have to check. I understand this product is on delay and my entire order containing this product will have the expected shipping date of February 24th. And so this here is an SD bullion round, meaning that they had to go secure the actual bullion, then have the coins minted, then have it restocked in their shelves here. So this is a personal, private mintage here, which is the reason why it's a month to get these. But then again, you look at the actual spot price, and this is a screenshot from yesterday. Here we got 83.64, and it's good to say it has to go up since then to where just the actual prices we're witnessing is something that, man, I could have never imagined. But my whole point before this was the actual prices that dealers are paying now varies big time. And so let me see here. Let me get let me get some other stuff here from you, and let me share some other stuff here. So I got lots of things bookmarked, and then I'll get into more of the Venezuelan situation that from a different perspective than I'm sure what we are definitely being told and what perhaps you might have heard. But I bookmark all types of things here that I got to get out. It says a cartel defending the 79 silver. This is earlier this morning, midnightish. It says silver like they're alive depend upon it. Said with silver surging to nearly $88 an ounce in Shanghai, the China silver premium has stretched to $9 an ounce. So the difference between the Western and the Eastern is $9, and therefore that fear of more pressure on the Western hemisphere because of the lower price, the idea of people demanding physical silver on this side so that they can send it over there and make up that arbitrage difference there, it will only intensify. So at some point, the bank's going to have to close that gap if they want to try to, somewhat keep pace with the silver surge, but it's more likely not going to happen. Okay, let me give you a couple more here, and then I'll get into my primary narrative. Let me share here because I have more things bookmarked. And so I'll share this here. So this is from yesterday. I hinted at this a minute ago, but here you have a letter that went out from SD Bullion to all their customers. It says here, record silver demand hits major bullion dealer, causing significant shipment delays. It says record-setting demand from the retail public in December. SD Bullion CEO Chase Turner says, so here's a nice little letter that went out, basically just describing how, as a business, they're having problems with inventory, therefore expect greater delays. And you better believe every major online dealer is in the same boat. So it's only those that are well connected and that have stored up a significant inventory will be able to meet demand. And once again, we're still not really into the retail FOMO. Like we're just in the first inning of that. And so there will be lots of businesses, I believe, in the next couple of months going offline because you can't have your doors open if you don't have product to sell to your customers. So this is going to get interesting. So the last entry and exit point will probably end up being coin shops. And of course, they're going to experience issues as well, but they'll have a greater chance of getting people coming down to unload some silver. So they'll keep some inventory. But on the sales side, you better believe their premiums is going to go up big time because of the concern of making sure that they can supply demand whenever it's needed. And then as I'm thinking about this, at what point, and this is something we need to probably talk about pretty soon. At what point will the actual holders, silver stackers, those that are sound money enthusiasts, at what point will we begin looking to deal and operate in direct hand-to-hand silver exchange? or you got the gold backs that's already operational and things of that nature. But pretty soon, of course, it's smarter to spend fiat while you still can. But once again, if bullion dealers, coin shops go out of line, like it's going to be harder for people to get their hands on genuine, authentic silver and gold, because you better believe with the increased demand of physical silver and gold, you got the fakes. The fakes business, I'm sure, is booming right now. And so I've saw a couple of stories of people buying fake stuff because, once again, if you look at a price and it's too good to be true, you might want to question whether or not it's real or not. But these are some things that we're going to be talking about sooner than later, I believe. Okay, so let me get into a couple other things here. I have to touch on the narrative surrounding Venezuela because it's just beginning. And my prediction is that the people of Venezuela, there's two sides. There's those that are happy. There's those that are aware of what's really happening. They're not coming down there to free the Venezuelan people. They're literally coming to capture the markets and open it up for Western or Wall Street. And as a result of that, you're going to have a lot of pushback. So the Venezuelan people, military wise, and the pro Chavista movement individuals that don't want Western intervention will definitely fight. Then you're going to have the drug cartels and those business people there who want to keep things corrupt and criminal as they can because they have already captured all markets there. Then you're going to have foreign interests, which is Russia and China. Russia and China has a very large presence in that country, and they have invested lots of money to the tunes of billions. They're going to want access to the things that they were promised when they signed agreements. I'm going to go through a whole list of agreements that lets me know this will not be a easy capture of a nation, similar to how the U.S. invaded Libya, Iraq, Syria, all the Middle Eastern countries. Venezuela is going to be a different story. And so we will be sending boots on the ground in Venezuela, I believe, in order to help Wall Street capture the resources as well as helping the oil industry capture the oil. And so, unfortunately, there will probably be some lives lost. And once again, it's just a reflection of this administration and whatever side of the aisle you stand on, whatever you believe this is intended to accomplish. When you got to use American troops, you got to ask yourself, whose war will this be? And once again, I'm gonna probably shy back on the geopolitical narratives and stuff like that, just because a lot of it is wasting my breath because I can't stop, won't, and then this new world alliance that's being formed will not stop. And so, literally talking about it is just a waste of time. I can share my opinion on it, but once again, my opinion don't matter. When I log on, I want to reach those people who might discover the channel for the first time that don't know the importance of gold and silver and be able to go get them some and understand why, and then have plans around it. That's going to be my purpose moving forward with relative to rethinking the dollar and, trying to be street savvy and trying to be, give people an in-game perspective. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, that's just, a little something there I thought I would just share. Okay, so let me get into some narratives here. So let's just talk about what the overall support is. So here's a headline here. It says only 33% of Americans approve of the U.S. strike in Venezuela. So this is just a little graph here. And, I'm not going to go into detail about it, but overall support for what just took place is very minimal. But then again, this administration, this is his last hoorah. And so he only has literally 2 years left to accomplish everything that he was put in power to accomplish, which expect more chaos, more devastation, more debasement, more everything, because there's no solution to a problem that's unsolvable. So yeah, I got a lot of things that I believe will be coming, which won't be pretty, unfortunately. So yeah, anyway, but that's just some headlines here. So here we have Colombia and Brazil bolster armed forces at borders, bracing for the Venezuelan refugee influx. And this is as of today. And so here we have Sunday, Colombian Defensive Minister ordered deployment of 30,000 troops to Venezuelan border to strengthen security. And this move coincided with the putting emergency measures in place to assist displaced civilians. So you better believe, as a result of this, there's going to be lots of turmoil and chaos. And literally, wherever the U.S. goes, or whenever they get involved, they destabilize the entire region. So Colombia will be impacted by this Venezuela situation, as well as Guyana, as well as Brazil. So all this will be impacted. But as I mentioned earlier, for those who might be plugging in late, the one outside of oil, which is what we're aware of, it's the other additional resources that are important. And there's a region on this map in green that's in the Bolivar state. So literally this region right here, called the Bolivar State. This region here has a $2 trillion abundance of resources. And this is what the bullion banks, this is what the banking cartel wants. And so the oil energy complex, they get the oil, and Wall Street will go for the Bolivar region right here to extract what's there. So this is what American troops will eventually be sent to Venezuela to secure. And so you better believe wherever the US goes, nothing gets accomplished as planned. And yeah, so this is the beginning, people, of what's happening, because Venezuela and Russia have assets there to protect. Okay, so let me keep it going. Let me get into some of the narratives here. So here is something that was a part of the reason why the US needed to go in, like right now, to capture Maduro, to prepare for things that were being set up by the Maduro or the Venezuelan Chinese partnerships. So they've been working together for 5 or 6 years now. They got a lot of bilateral agreements, a lot of heavy investment was put into Venezuela by China to secure their interests, as well as the continuation of the Belt and Road Initiative, which the maritime access would definitely impact Venezuela. And so here's just a headline here, and I'll get into why. It says exclusive, so it's blocked out, but I didn't bother to go try to get it. But the headline speaks for itself. Private Chinese firm producing oil in Venezuela under a rare 20-year pact, sources says. And so it's this 20-year agreement plus other things that the U.S. could not allow to happen, because literally this 20-year pact kicks off right about now. And it kicks off with this. This is the reason why. This is a major reason why the U.S. decided to strike now. Maduro, so think about this. One thing people don't realize is that Maduro has had a hit out on his life, or had a ransom. Was it? I think Biden put it out. Trump put it out first at 10 million. Then Biden put it at 25 million. So for the last 5-6 years, there's been a price tag on Maduro's head forever. And it was just there. But nobody ever decided to claim that, that cash prize on Maduro's head. And so literally now this administration is like, you know what? That 25 million that he's, that bounty on his head, nobody's going to go get that. So skip the bounty. We got to go just get them ourselves. And it's like, what a coincidence that they go right now. And you get that 20-year agreement kicking off. And then you have this right here. This Chinese joint oil venture partner installs a drill rig in Lake Maracaibo. And so literally the Chinese sent over a oil extraction rig to begin extracting oil, like all the crumbling, all the corroded and outdated oil wells that were there. China's literally they sent over the first of many to come to begin extracting oil at a very high, sophisticated rate. So you got Chinese technology moving into Venezuela. What a coincidence that they decided to go in right now before those rigs were set up and pumping oil, and therefore that oil going where? Back to China. And so this narrative is, so this was in September. It says the Aloha jackup rig represents the first significant oil infrastructure investment in Western Venezuela in several years. So this little thing here was being set up and probably by now pumping. And so this plays into that 20-year deal. So it says the privately owned, it says the privately owned China Concord secured a 20-year deal to run the Lago Cinco and Lagunas Lago oil fields, and will reportedly invest $1 billion with the goal of raising production from the present 12,000 barrels per day. So right now, prior to this Chinese investment and Chinese re-infrastructuring, it was at 12,000 barrels per day. Now they're talking about bringing it from 12 to 60,000 barrels per day by the end of this year. The project aims to develop 500 wells. And so this right here, my friends, is the reason why China says it cannot accept countries acting as the world judge after U.S. captures Maduro. And so you have a lot more narratives coming out of China over the last couple of days. It says China decries U.S. action in Venezuela, even as it guards billions at stake. And so literally, as a result of this capturing, of a president, therefore trying to disrupt their agreements with that nation, you better believe there is no reason whatsoever that China will show mercy now when it comes to trying to incrementally allow silver and gold to reach its fair market value. They're going to literally, the best way to stick it to the US right now and Europe would be to let gold and silver just rip the faces off of any and every exchange that deal with the paper futures that suppressed the price for decades now. So if China chooses to, which I believe they have every right to do now, because if they end up losing assets that they're putting in Venezuela, then the best way to stick it to the dollar is to let gold and silver rip, therefore causing the bullion banks in the Western Hemisphere to go belly up. And if the bullion banks here, I mentioned, Bank of America, Citigroup, all those banks that may be short and need some help, the repo markets won't be enough. 75 billion a day here, 100 billion here will not be enough. Because as I mentioned from that thing I did a couple days ago, if you have the bullion banks, which are short approximately, 4 to 5, billion, if I'm not mistaken, ounces, or is it 4 to 5? No, it was 4 to 5 million ounces, I think, millions. And only 800 million come out of the ground. No, it was 4 to 5 billion, correct, because only 800 million come out of the ground per year. So that's a 5-6 fold that is not possible. So all those contracts literally will be defaulted upon and exposed as being fraudulent. And that right there is hundreds of billions, if not $1 trillion worth of, currency that will be needed to protect those banks if they don't let them go under. So protecting the bullion banks will be on our government's number one list. Therefore, the Federal Reserve had to step in and protect Wall Street, because Wall Street's attached to all those bullion banks and things like that. So, yeah, it's about to get interesting, people. It is about to get interesting. And so, with that being the case, that's just on the surface of what we know about China sending oil rigs to begin extracting triple the amount of oil from the wells that were already open. Now that's been disrupted. But here's another side of the equation that is not really known about as well. So let me give you a little bit of a lesson that I learned. So these are all things that made it expedient for the government or for this administration to go in there. Here you have something called the Orinoco mining arc. And so this here, my friends, when I discovered this, I'm like, wow, it makes it even clearer now why not only the oil is important for the oil companies. And of course, I'm gonna play some video in a minute, let you know how, the oil companies were in Donald Trump's ear for him to do that so that they can get down there and help the Venezuelan people extract whatever. I just showed you what China was already planning on doing. So I'm gonna play that in a minute. But here is the real kicker. It says the Orinoco mining, from Santa and correct, forgive me, is a resource-rich area in Venezuela that has become a hub for illegal mining. It was opened in February 2016 as the Orinoco Mining Arc National Strategic Development Zone. So the OMRAR, whatever, has been operated since 2017. The mine covers 12.2% of the Venezuelan territory with the area of 111,000 kilometers. So think about this. 12.2% of the entire country of Venezuela consists of this mining arc, which, listen to this, it says gold is the most important resource in the area, and there are also deposits of bauxite, coltan, and diamonds, according to the former minister Roberto Mirabo. The mining arc has a potential mineral value of $2 trillion US dollars. And so, mind you, this region, which covers 12.2% of Venezuela, the Chinese has dibs on it. And so let me see here. So let me share some other things with you. So outside of this region here, this is the region I was talking about that covers. Let me get a map for you here. Let me see. Okay, so I may not be able to find the map, but let me see if I can. Okay, so as I mentioned, it's the state of Bolivar, which I showed you on the first map. But here's just the area that it covers. If it's 12.2% of the country is that region, it says here the Orinoco River. It says the The Monero spans an area such as the river, covers the Venezuelan states of Amazonas, Bolivar, Delta, Marcoro. So the region is one of the most biodiverse areas of the Amazon rainforest. So literally, as I mentioned, it is the region. Let me see where's that. It's this region here. So this entire southern hemisphere, the Amazonas and Bolivar, is where this naturally rich $2 trillion region is at, and it's untapped. And so you better believe the bullion banks would definitely love to get there and extract all the resources out of there before China does. And I have a couple other articles here highlighting how China was planning on doing this and doing that. And so just to let you know how the U.S. was already preparing for this, here is a news update from Scottsdale Mint. They're partners of the United States Mint. They help supply the blanks for the United States Mint. And here you have the U.S. secures a silver smelter deal to process latam metals. And so here you have the United States with the U.S. Department of Defense will hold a 40% stake of JPM finance smelter. So JP Morgan financed this smelter. And so once again, they're going through all this infrastructure build out. Where is the metals coming from? I wonder, is it the early investment for what they anticipate being the extraction of the Venezuelan / other nations? Because once again, Venezuela is just one. They're going after all types of other nations as well. Anything that's naturally rich, they're going after them. And they need the infrastructure to make sure that once the product is sent over, it can be melted down, refined, and processed, and then shipped out for a variety of reasons. But give you an idea here, it says the project known as U.S. Smelter is expected to require approximately $6.6 billion capital expenditures with total investment of $7.4 financing cost. It said it is being developed in coordination with the U.S. Department of War, the U.S. Department of Commerce, according to the project's materials and government statement. So think about this: the Department of War. It's good to say that you need a variety of minerals and rare earths and silver in order to be able to provide for the military industrial complex, i.e. the defensive investments. And so you got the combination of the War and Commerce Department joining in through JP Morgan to have in preparation this smelter to be able to prepare and produce real world resources. So, these are just one or two or three of things that, once again, everything was strategically planned and coordinated. Nothing is accidental. Everything is intentional in the midst of a new world takeover. So Venezuela is the first. And then I'm going to play some sound bites. So I'm not sure, where people, I'm going to just play some sound bites, some things that should really have people fired up. Now, I'm just going to go through a variety of sound bites and play these because these are things that I bookmarked that I didn't get a chance to talk about. But whenever you see Lindsey Graham, a neocon of neocons, and Donald Trump partnering up and working together, things you should question. But this is a statement here that should spook everybody. And let me make sure. Hold on a sec. Give me a second here. Let me make sure that you can hear it. So let me cut the audio on so you can hear it. And just listen to the statements that this dude is making. Let me build this out here. And I want you to listen to the stuff that's come out of this guy's mouth. And, let me know that this guy is more than excited to just do his handler's bidding. So listen to this.
Statute doesn't apply to Israel or the United States or France or Germany or Great Britain because it wasn't conceived to come after us.
So here you have, just read the headline. International Criminal Court doesn't apply to Israel or the United States. It wasn't designed for us. So think about this. The ICC can label Putin a terrorist. It can label any African, leader that doesn't comply with the Western's agenda as a terrorist, and and then literally threaten them to capture them and hold them in criminal court for genocide or whatever else. But Bibi Netanyahu comes to the U.S. every couple months And whenever he comes here, just look at what happens after. Something happens. The U.S. does something in his best interest, and we are harboring a international criminal, but yet the rules don't apply to them. But Maduro, on the other hand, like you can go into a country and get him. And so just stuff like this. This is stuff just being supported by this administration. And so here's another one here. Listen, look at this one. This right here I found to be funny.
You've seen it. One of the things that is happening, and I think you see it all the time. Howard, you've seen it. That Cuba is ready to fall. You know? Yes. Cuba looks like it's ready to fall. I don't know if they're going to hold out. But Cuba now has no income. They got all of their income from Venezuela, from the Venezuelan oil. They're not getting any of it. And Cuba literally is ready to fall. And you have a lot of great Cuban Americans that are going to be very happy about this.
Rubio. So the whole point of that video was just the person. Look how happy Lindsey Graham is. Look at it says here, the moment President Trump says Cuba is ready to fall, Lindsey Graham's entire expression shifts instantly. What does his face tell you? And he's just lit up like a kid. Like, this is what he's been waiting for. This is a part of his legacy to be able to be a part of this new world order type of situation. But Cuba, is Cuba next? We're gonna find out. And of course, Nicaragua and Greenland. So like any nation that doesn't play ball with the U.S. is subject to being targeted for a variety of reasons. And of course, natural resources being the primary reason. But yeah, okay, so I got more. But these are all things I bookmark just to show how, people don't know the truth. They'll stand for anything. And once again, we're past the point of political affiliation. Left, right, don't matter. It's like, just watch what's being done. How does this make America great again? That's just my thought, but could be 100% wrong. Is everybody's gonna make money that's in on this, but all we gonna get is a tariff dividend check. That's why. Take your fiat, put it to use, protect yourself, preserve your wealth as best you can. And buckle up. It's going to be an interesting ride because the powers that be, they got a lot to gain and they're not going to lose anything, in my opinion. So, yeah, between now and 2030, they're going to succeed and the world we live in will not be the same. And yeah, there we go from there. But in the meantime, God is still good. He's on the throne and we know how everything ends. And those that are in Christ are on the winning side. That is what I believe to be certain. But anyway, good people, just checking in for a minute. Lots of things checking on. I got more articles, more stories, but you got the idea. You got the gist of everything. Silver, who knows what the price is? It's just whatever you pay when you check out. And of course, Venezuela is just the beginning. There's going to be boots on the ground. It's going to be they're going to destabilize the region. Therefore, all the Venezuelan people are going to flood the U.S. They open up the borders for, refugees and stuff like that now. Yeah, so the goal is to empty out the country so it makes it easier to send boots there. So it'll be less lives lost so they can capture everything and steal everything and then, turn Venezuela into another Gaza. They're going to put, a Trump Tower down there, Trump Plaza down there. It's interesting. But anyway, that's just my 2 cents. Could be 100% wrong. But then again, so far, I ain't looking too wrong. But anyway, share your thoughts, ideas, suggestions in the comment section. If you found value here, hit that thumbs up. Take this, share it so more people can get an alternative perspective. And then we'll go from there. But other than that, good people, be best. Later.